Hello guys and welcome, it is ThatSrb2DUDE here today, bringing you yet another Splatoon 2 video to show you guys some interesting tests that I've been doing regarding charges and ink armor. So in my last video I did a patch note comparison with all the different changes from version 1.2 to version 1.3, and with this video I want to specifically go into more detail regarding with ink armor. So as you know, with the latest nerfs with ink armor, if you inflict 100 damage on a person that has ink armor, they will be knocked back significantly, as shown in this clip. However, I grabbed a few of my Twitch subscribers to do a little bit of testing, and we found some very interesting things to do with you surviving with ink armor or you actually dying with ink armor. Yes, that is right. As shown in this clip here, if you are standing in enemy ink and you use ink armor, if a Splatterscope or a regular charger just shoots you while you're standing in the ink, you can still die with ink armor. And this is due to the nerfs, because if you take a certain amount of damage over 100, you'll be inflicted with damage while losing ink armor. So right then and there, I was actually going to stop the video until we figured out another thing. While doing my test, I was shooting another one of my subscribers, and for some reason when he had ink armored, he was not dying even though I was still shooting him with the full charge with a Splatterscope. This is also when he was standing in ink as well. The reason for why he wasn't dying is because he was wearing ink resistance. He had one main of ink resistance, and that was enough to actually keep him alive while being shot with ink armor while standing in enemy ink. So we wanted to test this further. We wanted to see the minimum amount of ink resistance that you needed to wear to actually survive a Splatterscope shot while standing in enemy ink. And the test didn't really take long. We moved on to the next game and we actually found our result. You only need one sub of ink resistance to survive a Splatterscope shot while standing in enemy ink if you have ink armor on. Basically, if you aren't wearing anything as little as one ink resistance sub, you still have the potential to actually be splattered while wearing ink armor in other people's ink. So I've heard rumors that Object Shredder is actually known to cutting ink armor faster. So I figured if I was to use a Splatterscope with Object Shredder, will it just straight up destroy somebody who's using ink armor no matter what? And quite quickly this was disproven, because the one sub of ink resistance still managed to keep my Twitch subscriber alive. However, we did accidentally find something really interesting as well, is that if your opponent is already weak with ink armor, you'd still have the potential to actually one-shot them, showing in this example here. So those were just the tests for the Splatterscope in general. So I was still curious. I wanted to find out if the E-liter acts any different. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the examples of an E-liter shooting an Inkling with ink armor on just flat ground in no enemy ink. As you can see, the two both survived the two shots. One was also wearing one sub of ink resistance and the other was wearing one main. But the next thing we try is them two standing in enemy ink. And well, as you can see, both of them are wearing ink resistance. One's wearing one sub, one's wearing one main. And standing in enemy ink while using ink armor, they still get one shot by the E-liter. So just to note that I was wearing Object Shredder for these two examples. So we did it again without Object Shredder and we got the exact same results. Both of the Inklings still died while standing in enemy ink while using ink armor. This just further disproves that Object Shredder just does not work against ink armor using a charger. So we wanted to see if it was actually possible to survive a hit while standing in enemy ink by the shot of an E-liter, of course. Thing I suggested is to up the mains of ink resistance that they have. So in this example, one of my subscribers is using 2 mains of ink resistance, one of them is using 3, and as you can still see, they still both die. And in this last example here, my subscriber is wearing 3 mains and 4 subs. It's pretty much the highest that we possibly could go with these tests. But in my honest opinion, I don't think anyone is going to run a build that is higher than 3 mains of ink resistance in competitive. But even with that being said, showing in this example, the Inkling still died, even with that many mains and subs with ink resistance. So why does this happen? Why does it that the E-liter is able to one-shot an Inkling while standing in enemy ink, even if they're wearing ink resistance, and with the Splatterscope, they can't one-shot an Inkling if they wear ink resistance? So this is what I think that is happening. When you are wearing ink resistance, there is a lower limit of damage that you can actually be inflicted while you are standing in enemy ink. If you aren't wearing any ink resistance at all, then you're going to take more damage while standing in enemy ink. So considering a full charge shot from a Splatterscope is 160 damage, it is most likely that if you are standing in enemy ink with no ink resistance at all, you have possibly lost 20% or more of your health. You gotta look at the patch notes because it says with ink armor, the maximum amount of damage that ink armor can absorb at once is 80 points. So basically what you gotta do is 160 damage take away 80. And with that, you would be left with 20 HP because you had survived the shot. This is why on flat ground you survived the shot in the first place. But if you had already taken more than 20 damage, you would still die. Let's look at the Elia. The Elia does 180 damage. So with a full charge shot, it should technically be taking out the enemy Inkling, shouldn't it? If you do 180 take away 80, it's 100 damage. So is it possible that there could be some small fib? If an Inkling is shot with an Elia, the ink armor absorbs 80 of that damage. 100 damage should be inflicted on them, otherwise it doesn't make sense. It could potentially be this, or that if you have not taken any damage of anything and you're shot by an Elia, you will be inflicted with 99.9 damage. It is potentially one of these two theories because those are actually the only two things that would actually make sense. Because as you can see, an Elia will take anybody out, even if they're wearing ink resistance, while they're standing in enemy ink. Thus, that would prove my point of ink resistance having a lower damage cap while standing in enemy ink. There's a lot of math to this, and there's a little bit complicated to kind of understand, and I hope I explained this the best I can for you guys, because it is pretty interesting when you actually go really deep into it and actually think what's actually happening with the game when X is happening to X, you know. Or the game is just super confused with the large amount of damage being inflicted, because I had tested this also with the bubble blower. Now, if you didn't know, a single bubble can inflict 250 damage onto an opponent. So the first thing we tested was an Inkling not standing in any enemy ink. And as you can see, the Inkling survives. We also tested what would happen if an Inkling was standing in enemy ink and we also ignite a bubble on them. And as you can see, the Inkling is now taken out from the explosion. And the last thing we tested was an Inkling taking a tiny bit of damage while jumping in enemy ink. And as you can see, the Inkling does survive. So what this is actually making me think now is that you have to be in a certain state of damage to actually be taken out in one hit with some sort of bubble or an Elia shot. But that is pretty much the conclusion I've came with this. All I know is that you want to make sure that you have at least one sub of ink resistance to make sure that you don't lose as much damage while standing in enemy ink. I'd like to give a big thank you to my Twitch subscribers who helped me out with this: Miss Kobayashi, Stardust Sonic, Squid You Know, Takawako, Marv, Oren101, and Superman. That is all from me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope that you guys actually put this into your intelligence of the game and such like that. But yeah, that is pretty much it for me. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch, both in the description below. Do it for both if you're feeling generous. And as always, guys, this has been ThatSrb2DUDE, and I shall see you guys in a future video.